Yesterday I put this head on and it was soaking wet, so water's running out of it everywhere. And the ratchet straps then pull that head down over that. And then as it dries, it tightens more and more on there. And then these are the tacks or the nails that will hold it on eventually. So those have been just applied yesterday.
And so I did not, I guess in my mind I did not know that there were skins at the bottom and the top. Why is that? What is that unique about this style of drum?
It gives it a different sound because instead of sitting on the ground or sitting down low where the sound doesn't necessarily emanate out there, it also allows it to be played by two players, one on each end. And we'll see that when we we'll see that upstairs where I've got one already mounted on a stand.
Okay.
So here, this is what the head looked like when we started. So whether it's for a small drum or whether it's for a large drum, it's just a big disc of rawhide. And the big ones, as you can see, on this drum, the excess where I've had to stretch it is there. I cut this off. Right behind you, Chris, is one of the finished drums. So here's a finished drum, and you can see that excess stuff has been cut off, and so it ends up like this. But the big heads are quite a bit thicker than the smaller heads,
What kind of tool do you have to use to cut them?
To cut that off, I used a saw of sorts. It's called a sonic crafter with a real fine blade on it. And I have to get it wet again so that it's pliable, and then I just cut around it.
How long do you have to soak the rawhide before you can do anything?
3 days. And then it takes 3 days to dry once it's been soaked. So that's a big hold up in the process. You can hurry up and do it, but you can't make the water soak in faster than about 3 days, and you can't make it drier. Even though I've got a little fan running over there, it'll still take into tomorrow before this is really done and ready to go.
Do you have to start with hot water or boiling water?
Just water. But you have to change it because it's an organic material. You have to change that water every day, or it begins to get a little brackish. So to do that, and I didn't know how I was going to do this to start with. But I ended up with wading pools. So just a kid's wading pool ordered off the internet. Blow it up, put some water in it, and throw that big disc in it for 3 days, and here it goes. And then as you take it off, like the last thing you do, it isn't flat, it's more like a Coke bottle cap. And so I've got a small one then to soak it after it's already shaped like that. So it's been fun to have to get down and empty that out every day, over and over and over.
So this is as much an art as it is a construction project.
It is. And the traditional Japanese method is to actually make them from the trunks of trees. So mine are made of as you saw, a nail keg or a whiskey barrel. And these days, even in Japan, they're starting to do some of that. But they would target a Japanese oak tree. We'll call it a 1,000-year-old oak tree that in its aging process naturally hollows itself out. So the trunk of the tree, even when it's still growing, is hollow. And this, I mentioned earlier, this city of Uto, where we went to the museum, has, we'll call it an airplane hangar-sized storage building full of tree trunks that they've been harvesting for the last century to save for the last drums that will ever be made out of real Japanese oak, because these trees are dying out. So as you travel around Japan, you can see them in parks and on national historic places, and these days they've built cement walls around them just to make sure that nobody runs into it with their car, or an accident or something doesn't happen to these historic monuments called these old trees. But it's fun to see this giant tree trunk hollow enough that you can walk through it already, and they haven't even done anything to it. So ultimately they'll turn those into drums, but there are none of them that are small like this available anymore. They're made by a specific company. I've found broom handles and everything else and made my own. These are made out of oak, so they're a little harder than my broom handle ones. But there's no front end, there's no back end. It's just a big stick. I was telling you in my office about the drums that are 10 feet across.
Yes.
Imagine playing with a drumstick that's as big as a baseball bat.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to swing a baseball bat with one hand against this giant drum, because it has to be a bigger stick for a bigger drum.
To make a bigger sound.
Yep.
And it would probably, you'd have to be in fantastic shape.
Yes, you would. You got to have a pretty
You'd have to
good
be skilled to get a sound out of it that actually sounded like something besides
So
just somebody beating on a drum.
Yep,
with
as
a
we
baseball
said,
bat.
the idea is a lifelong quest to learn and to practice and to hone your skills more and more and more. So if I were to play this, then I don't just stand here and start beating. There's a whole put one foot in front of the other, crouch down, and it's not hit it, it's stroke it. And there's a sound not only that the head gives you, but there's also, so there are drum strokes on the head and strokes on the rim, a rim shot. This head sounds different than this head. And the four heads then on the two drums downstairs are also different than this. What we get on the small drum then is a very similar sound, but different. And again, I need to not just start playing on it. Hear how much tighter raised that is. So the combination then between the little drums and the big drums gives this, I believe, very ceremonial sort of approach to the music. And watching the students then doing the ceremonial, not a dance, but a very appropriate approach to playing the drums is part of the event as well.
And would you use the rim on this drum as well?
Yep, I can use the rim on the hole tighter, so it's appropriately pitched or sized to the drum. The smaller the drum, the higher that sound is.
How would you get a rhythm going using both drumsticks? I mean, would you use both drumsticks, or?
Yes. Indicative of something that this big drum would play. Comparatively in Western music, this would be the bass drum, a whole lot of the beat going on, and then the ricky-ticky stuff is going to happen on the